On top. Hello. Hi there.
Hi.
This was just supposed to be a 5-minute announcement. I'm going to let it expand a bit because one of the other speakers didn't show up. So, how many of you knew Amil Quail? Cool. How many of you know of him? How many of you know of his poetry? Even more. Cool. Do you have a clicker? Oh, you can leave on clicker.
I can.
Well, there's Amil, and there's a book that he wrote of his poems. And he's a Idaho farm boy, contracted the horrid disease of river as a young man, ended up being a boatman and eventually an outfitter. And then eventually his roots called him, and he sold the business, went back to Nebraska to farm, and went back to college, got a PhD in English, and began teaching English and poetry, and started writing pretty amazing poems. And back in the 90s, when I was in charge of the Boatman's Quarterly, every once in a while, an envelope would arrive from Amil. And I wouldn't even go up to the house. I'd sit down in the driveway and read it. Mm-hmm. They're amazing, wonderful poems about the river and about the life of a guide. And so this little book came out about 20 years ago. And it was always kind of hard to find. And then when Amil passed about 10 years ago, it became pretty much impossible to find. And so this is just basically an announcement. I'm working with Amil's son, Manx Quail, who found the mother lode of the book. And so we've got it available again.
Cool.
And, you can come out to our office out in the silly little boats out there during breaks. But I wanted to share one poem with you just to wet the whistle if you haven't heard of Amil. And this one he wrote when he was back in Nebraska, living in an apartment and teaching. And it's called, give it a click. You did, ha, already. Now I gotta find it in the book. The only good thing about this apartment is the way the wooden stairway wobbles back and forth. It feels risky and nice. I'm sure it'll collapse someday. Someone might get hurt. I always wonder if this will be the time. Is this what old river runners do after they've long since given up on running rapids, worrying about other people getting hurt, wondering at the high cost of each epiphany, sacrificing love for that one sublime minute in Lava Falls, betraying family and friends for the passion of water and rock, taking their physical needs eagerly at random when it comes, crying lonely at the shock of Las Vegas after the trip ends, sleeping fitfully to the sound of phantom jets by Nellis Air Force Base, spending the horrendous post-trip letdown day at the Buckskin Bar in Kanab, listening to gloomy Ray Price singing Christopherson songs, returning to the warehouse with a whiskey head that feels like an atomic explosion, unloading the truck of gear from the Dead River trip, wondering about this person from Cincinnati, that person from Philadelphia, hoping to God they never see that one again, praying to God they'll see the other one someday, knowing they probably never will. Loading for the next trip, driving to Lee's Ferry, spending a bad night waiting for the passengers, sizing them up when they arrive, going back on the water again. 9 days of agonized ecstasy, over and over until it was over. Is this what old river runners do? Climb the rickety stairs of their lives, wondering with mild amusement when the stairway will collapse. I've got a pile of these out there. $15. Manx is going to use the proceeds to put up a website in honor of Amil. And this is some of his wild artwork that he got into later in life. That one's hanging on my wall. the poems and the artwork and stuff will go up on that website. You want one more?
Yeah.
This one's killer. This is about one of his students in poetry writing class named Sean. Sean from Poetry Writing calls. We have a permit to run the cellway. It's running high. The ranger says it's dangerous. I'll have to miss a couple of classes. What do you think? What do I think? I think I'm 55 years old. I think about Curry flipping 5 out of 6 boats on the Selway that time. I think about finding the drowned man in Cataract. I think about Scott drowning in flat water at the Moab Bridge. I think about my 3 flips and the people in the water who depended upon me for their safety. I think of seeing my son disappear when the tubes separated at Cataract and John Kingsley grabbing his arm and hanging on. I think of the gut-wrenching truth of Crystal, the less olden truth of Warm Springs, and the Shorty Burton truth of Upset Rapid. I think of Thevenin Falls on El Sumidero and Paul, 2 days on that rock. I think of every lonely night I've ever spent in a sleeping bag by myself, listening to the sound of running water. I think about what a person gives up for that, the price one pays. I think about Sean holding the phone, waiting for an answer, and I say, hell yes, I think you should do it. What do you got to lose? You need this. And we got them. And when we sell out these, we're going back into print. This is something you need. Thank you.